Photographers can be so arrogant.
If you followed me for a little while, you'll know that I love to waste my evenings away on Reddit. And I am a frequent user of the subreddit cameras. I was browsing that subreddit the other day and there was a title that really caught my eye. How did I do? I had a photographer completely shatter my inspiration. My first thought when I read that title was, wow, what a... And I couldn't help but sit and think on this post for a little while, and here's why. The poster owns a small catering company, and with that, they post a lot on Instagram and Facebook. They'd gotten this camera to take photos of events and displays that they'd set up. And at a recent event, they connected with a photographer who wanted to check out their camera. The photographer took some shots with it and then said, this is just a mirrored camera and that I should have gotten something better. The poster did some brief research before they bought it and they thought that Canon was the way to go. They went to Best Buy and they spent around $500. They then go on to say, and I quote, "Now I don't feel like using it as much because I was let down and told it's nothing special. Any advice on how I can improve the camera or any courses that I can take?" When I read that, I really thought, why would you say that to someone who's just expressing the joy about the art form? Photography is one of those things where by its very nature, it can feel quite gatekept. To be a professional in the photographic industry, you kind of do need a certain level of technology, and that can be really expensive. Definitely a lot more than $500. Not only the physical cost of having the technology, but also the time and investment to actually get really good at this art form. And of course, the fact that now everything has a camera built in. So today I wanted to make this video to show you that you do not need the latest brand new 9X Mark II Edition 6 with the 11 to 370 f9 lens in order to take beautiful images and catch the photography bug. I think in a way the kind of phone tech world has seeped its little fingers into every industry. And that little technology must have the most newest, latest gadget has forever changed nearly every aspect of technology. I will warn you about what we're gonna do today though, my loves. That buzz that you get when you've taken the one, the photo that you are super proud of from your shoot day, and you can't wait to show it to everyone, that buzz is very addictive. This is the Canon 5D Mark II, a full-frame camera first released in 2008 for the professional market. It has a 21 megapixel full-frame sensor, which is more than good enough for high-quality prints, and it also has great low-light performance for its time of release. I got it earlier this year from MPB for £249. That's about $320, and you can definitely get them for less than that. The lens that I have on it is lovingly nicknamed the Nifty 50. It's the 50mm f1.8 Mark II that I picked up from eBay about 10 years ago for £50. That's about $70. The only difficult thing about this camera is that it takes a full-size CF card as memory. In total, the camera and the lens and the CF memory set me back around $420, and this would have been a top-of-the-range professional setup in 2008. This camera actually has a very special place in my heart. In 2008, when it was released, I was in college studying a foundation degree in photography, and in our portrait studio, we had about 10 of these that we as students could borrow for our projects. It is a chunky workhorse of a beast that just takes beautiful pictures, and from the first time I used it, I fell in love. So putting my money where my mouth is, I want you to follow along with me today, and we're gonna put this to the test. I'm gonna show you what decent, affordable old tech is capable of. So, a few things about this camera. It does not have a touchscreen, so you have to get used to the menus and the dials in order to change the settings that you want. Now, today's weather is a little bit murky, a little bit unpredictable, a little bit summery, but also not at all at the same time. Very typical of British weather. So I actually think today's images are gonna be a little bit unpredictable, but that is a good thing because out of unpredictability can come beauty. To get to grips with a camera like this, it's very beneficial to sit down with a nice cup of coffee and just play with it. But just for some context, as today is kind of unpredictable, I'm going to keep my aperture between 1.8 and 4. I've got my shutter speed set to auto and my ISO as well. And I've got my white balance set to 5500. And I generally don't really change it off that. That is as close to what my eye sees without having to color correct in post. So, with that being said, let's take some pictures.
Photography as an art form is all about training your eye. What little story are you sharing in the image that you capture? There are so many different ways you can tell that story, and probably the most important one is composition. I'm currently filming for another upcoming project around nostalgia, and I spent a lot of time in this park when I was young. It's interesting to me walking around that some things are still exactly the same. The best way to get started in photography is to just take pictures of things you like. Personally, I really like the look of sharp, angular things, so quite often using focus to pull those to the forefront is a theme that you'll see quite often within the photographs that I take. I also enjoy telling the story of isolation or loneliness, and I wanted to do that with this scene of this tree here. From the angle that I was at, I was finding it difficult to tell that story, so it's useful to remember that moving your position around a subject can help tell that story. And remember, not everything at eye level is interesting. You're gonna have to bend down, you're gonna have to get on the ground, you're gonna have to lay down, you're gonna have to jump in order to tell a compelling story with your image. Just remember to use a fast shutter speed if you're moving around a lot. After my walk through the park, I actually went to a local pond that I used to know very, very well, and it has a very old church nearby. The weather at this point had started to pick up and it was really bright and sunny, which kind of changed a little bit of what I wanted to go for with these images. So instead of dark and moody, really heavy stone shots, I think these turned out to be a little bit more casual.
This next location is Brighton Marina. It is very windy. The weather has taken a turn for the worse. I used to come down here a lot when I was really, really young. We used to come and park in that car park because there's a cinema there. But the architecture here is quite interesting. It was finished being built in the 70s, and this is all reclaimed land from the ocean. They built several huge walls, threw out all the water and built on it. And because it's built in the 70s, it has some really weird architecture. So it is perfect for today's project.
A really important thing about outdoor photography to remember is that as the sun sets, it's going to get colder. That sounds obvious, but your hands are always going to be on your camera and it does get pretty chilly, so remember to dress warm. And of course, as the sun sets, you rapidly approach low light conditions. Low light conditions will often bring a slower shutter speed as well, which means if you're shooting handheld, you might introduce some motion blur into your images. Depending on your personal preference, these may add or take away from the ideal shot. I was pretty lucky to be able to still use a high shutter speed to capture this frozen image of the water on this fountain. The hour after sunset is known as the blue hour in photography. So when you have that beautiful warm glow of tungsten lights, they can make an image really tell a story. This location, having been built in the 70s, is an eclectic mix of different textures and styles. You've got some Victorian inspiration in the way that the metal looks on the lamps. And that paired with these rounded window shapes that were really common in the 70s makes for some very interesting juxtaposition. But as the cold of the night started to creep in, it made for some really impactful atmospheric images. And to remain within the low cost budget, I chose to edit these images on my iPhone using the inbuilt Photos app. If you have a newer iPhone, USB-C card readers can be used with them, and editing this way makes it especially easy to share directly to social media. I also have a little announcement. I will be going live on this channel this Friday, that is the 4th of October 2024, in a fundraising live stream for the World Wildlife Foundation. Head over to my channel homepage to set a reminder, and I will see you there.
I hope this video has shown you that you don't need the latest or the best camera to take compelling images. The worst thing you can do is give up.